when Pluto goes retrograde, we don't often think about it. It happens so often and it's moves so slowly. You know, Pluto's retrograde probably half the time. So Pluto is now taking its last retrograde back into the sign of Capricorn one last time. Hover and station at the 29 degrees. They call that the anaretic degree. And if you pull from the astrological wheel itself and the house system, the 12th house, and in the archetypal wheel, the 12th house is Pisces, and anyone's personal house system, the 12th house is going to be whatever sign ends up in their 12th, but the 12th house is always thought of as a house of death and undoing and rebirth and recycling and everything ending and restarting. If you equate the anaretic degree of every sign, with that kind of idea of the 12th sign or the 12th house being the sign, the 29th anaretic degree is the same concept ramped up to a 30-degree ratio, if you will, or a 30-degree span of intensity. So the anaretic degree in every sign is known in a particular way to be the most intense energy of the sign in a particular way, because it is the sign, or rather it is the degree upon which the last gasp of breath of the energy of that part of the zodiac transitioning into the next. And so it has an energy of dying away and giving space for something else to be birth, energetically speaking. This will be the last time in our lives that Pluto will touch Capricorn, teetering back and forth. We know that it did this last year once already. This will be the last one. In the spirit of our Pluto series, we're going to remind ourselves that Pluto, being the furthest planet out in the pantheon of the wandering stars, that in a way, symbolically, metaphorically speaking, it represents the last chance, if you will. In other words, when Pluto is traversing a particular part of the sky, when it is in that part of the sky, it is representing our last chance to deal with whatever is happening for us and in the world in that part of the sky. For whatever reason, God has seen fit for us to really know and really get the message of the end of Capricorn and the beginning of Aquarius. God has seen fit for us to know that really well before we move forward. And as I have said in other talks about Pluto moving into Aquarius, we cannot move forward properly until Pluto says we have been rebirthed in the proper way. Any mothers among you know how painful birth is. All of us infants cry when we were born. We take that first breath of air. There is a period of depression that the mothers go through after giving birth because something inside them has died because something has given birth. That which creates life itself, the sexual act between the man and the woman, the sperm and the ovum, is achieved by a word that is known as a little death. In order to create life, a little death must occur. God and heaven know that there is a whole lot of death going on in the world right now. And if we look closely enough, we see that there's a whole lot of rebirth happening too. In the midst of all the death, it's hard to celebrate the rebirth. And this juxtaposition of these extreme energies seem to generate an atmosphere of that limbo period that I've mentioned in another one of my talks about a near-death, describing a so-called near-death experience where we no longer fully understand what has come behind us. And we don't seem to be understanding what's right in front of us. And we sure as hell don't understand what's coming. And there's a sense of confusion about it all. Have we, in fact, died? What kind of clearing away did this eclipse cycle do? In fact, what did this eclipse cycle do? I used the term course correction the other day. And this is something you hear in astrology circles all the time. Course correction. That's what an eclipse can be. And it often is and is said to always be. Some astrologers will even be so bold as to say an eclipse is a course correction whether we like it or not. It is going to change the course. And there's even an understanding about the moon cycles that I really like, and it discusses or it refers to the moon cycles as the so-called footsteps of God. Each new moon is a step, and the full moon to follow is another step. The new moon after that is the next step, and the full moon the next step. And then the eclipse, the lunar eclipse happens, and there's a turn in direction. So step, 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 turn on the eclipse. New moon, full moon, new moon, full moon, eclipse. Interesting concept. As I said earlier, for one reason or another, God wants all of us to understand what happens between the signs of Capricorn and Aquarius very, very well. God is asking us to not miss any of these lessons because he's given us about 5 or 6 chances at this point. And as we have discussed, Pluto is the furthest one out, representing the deepest within, our last little chance to look the deepest at the deepest issue that is represented in this part of the sky. And it also represents, in terms of worldly matters, it represents in a very, very big way the United States itself. The United States itself. Because Pluto is literally hovering around the spot when our nation was born. And we can argue, and I would argue, in fact, we can argue whether or not that nation even really exists anymore. We know there's some version of it that's still here. And we know there's a spirit in this country, among the hearts of the men and women in this country that still believe in the spirit of what some of those original documents say, whether or not the power structure in our country is actually adhering to those documents. And of course, we know that they are not. We know that they are not. Pluto is hovering here, the deepest of all the lessons to be learned through God's firmament, the mind of God. Aquarius firmament, as it dips into Aquarius, which is where the age cycle always changes. We go back and listen to the rest of my Pluto series, and we'll talk more about that. You'll hear me talk more about that. This is where it happens. And Pluto hovering in this place is pinpointing that, is activating and verifying and validating where we are in the great cycle. This is huge, man. That's why things are so weird. Things are just weird. Or are they not? Whether we like it or not, Pluto wants to dig it up and is going to. We can't move forward until we do. There's too much weight. Remember light. The word light is the absence of heaviness and the absence of darkness. Light is the absence of heaviness and the absence of darkness. We use that word for both things, do we not? Pluto is ready to roto-rooter the last bit of darkness and the last bit of excess weight in our being, in our world, in our families, in our companies, in our relationships, in our thinking, in our practices, in our diet, in our addictions and patterns and habits. I, for one, am here to tell you that it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how old you are. I'm 56. You can change who you are. You can change who you are. We're not changing who we are. We're just coming into the fullness of God's will for our life. When we face the truth and stop waiting for someone else to give our version of the truth for us, so we don't have to come up with it for ourselves between us and God, which is the way that we must do it. Because that's how it becomes the truth. Because it is only the truth when it becomes between you and God, because God is truth. God is the truth. And whether the scoundrels that stole our country like it or not, this is a nation under God. And if the hearts of men and women in this country still hold true to that and still know that to be true, as we walk on this beautiful earth, we knowing that Mama Earth is a creation of God the Father Almighty, which was for us. Not just for us. You listen enough to my talks, you understand, you will hear and know that I don't think we're special, this human race. I know that the plant kingdom and the animal kingdom got some shit on us. So go back and listen. I'm saying that we're part of the mind of God because we are here on Mama Gaia Earth. She is the bride. She is the 3D mid-garden creator. If we study and learn and understand the language of the stars, the astrologos, the word of God, give us insight. This last little dip into the anaretic degree of Capricorn with Pluto, I honestly don't see how the truth can hide anymore, how the lie can continue to veil the truth that is living under that lie. I don't see it possible anymore. It doesn't matter how ugly it is. The truth is always ugly. That is in the scriptures. We know that the truth will set us free, but it is ugly at first. When we are separated from God, we face the ugly truth. Being separate from God is bound to be painful, and it is. We come to the ugly truth of that. And as I've said in other talks, Pluto wants to bring us back into alignment with God. And therefore, because we are separated, that dragging is going to be painful. And the more we resist, the more painful it will be. So from now until right around Thanksgiving time, November time of 2024, Pluto's going to be right on that edge again. I know how it felt for me and how it has felt for me and what changes occurred and have occurred during this time that Pluto's been hovering back and forth, and great changes have occurred in my life and in the energetic field, in my thinking. And I attribute most of it to simply being aware and having been aware of such energies and trying to continue to tap in. And it has helped me understand I am eager, as all yogis and astrologists are, probably as I am, to help others understand this language so they can benefit from its accuracy and understanding how God is trying to speak to us. Pluto's a real stinker, man. Again, I urge anyone still listening to check through the rest of the Pluto series. There is much to meditate upon about this giant issue, which is not gonna stop being giant, if you will, for the next 20 years. And so it really bears digging into now so we can face the next 20 years properly. God bless you all. Come see us in the Ozark Mountains